What's up, guys? Today we're going to be discussing the iPhone 11 versus the 10R versus the 10S in 2022. Which budget phone should you get? So I get this question a lot. There are some minor differences, but a lot of these phones, or these phones in general, these older iPhones, you can really blind pick these three, and I think the average person would be perfectly happy with these. But there are these little small things that I think you need to know about when you're purchasing. So let's go ahead and start off with the price. These are all really cheap phones, guys. So the iPhone 11, the cheapest on Amazon, $338. The 10R is $248, and then the 10S you can find for $255. So the 10S and 10R are kind of even in price point. We only see that significant price jump with the iPhone 11. So let's go over the pros and cons of each. So basically my order is which one I would pick. iPhone 11 I would definitely pick up first, since it's to me at a really great price, $338. But if you're on a very strict budget, let's say in that $200 budget, so you're choosing between the 10R and 10S, me personally I would go with the 10S here, and we're gonna go over why. But there are reasons. There's like maybe one reason you would go with the 10R. So we'll go ahead and talk about that. You go with the 10R over the 10S, but if you do have the money, you easily go with the iPhone 11 for sure here. But like I said, the iPhone 11, it does have some drawbacks compared to the 10S that we're going to talk about. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started here. Let's go ahead and talk about the build quality on all of these phones. All of these phones have really good build quality. They're all glass and metal devices here. So one thing that you will notice here with the 10R and the 11 is that they're about the same size. But when we go ahead and pick up the 10S, we can see it's slightly smaller actually than the 11 in the 10R here. The 10S is really easy to hold for people with smaller hands, but I really do like the iPhone 11 size. It just feels super comfortable as well too, and the 10R. So if you have smaller hands, you could definitely consider the 10S. It's not that much smaller, but it definitely is a little bit smaller there. But as far as the build quality, they all feel really solid in the hand here, all premium materials. One thing you'll notice is you have a glossy finish on the 10S versus the more matte finish or aluminum finish on the 10R and 11 there, but essentially the same setup. Also, I think the camera setup on the iPhone 11 looks a little bit more modern as well too. It just has that newer look to it. It honestly, if you switch the cameras around, it can, pass for an iPhone 13. Alright guys, so this is pretty important. So the 11 and the 10R, they both have 6.1 inch IPS Retina displays here, and they're around 720p plus resolution. So the 10S actually has a smaller 5.8 inch display, but this display is higher resolution, so it's around 1080p and it has a much higher PPI. So the display is just overall better on the iPhone 10s in my opinion. It's better for photo editing, it's better for just watching movies and stuff like that. It just looks better and more color accurate. Now we sort of get into this debate on whether the IPS panels are better for the eyes. It really depends on you personally. It's really subjective. But yeah, so if you want the overall best display specs, you would go with the 10S. So that's why I really do like this phone. You actually get, in my opinion, a better display. It's higher res. But the iPhone 11 and 10R's display, they both look great too. So it really just comes down to you. And also the advantage that these two have is that they're actually a little bit bigger. So if you want something that is a little bit bigger, then definitely consider the iPhone 11 or 10R. But for me, I would easily go with the OLED display, and plus I have smaller hands, so the display on here, the display size is really nice for one-handed use. So like I said, it comes down to your personal preference, but I do think the overall display quality is better on the 10S here. But overall, if you were to blind pick these, they all look really sweet. They all look great. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about speed and performance. You will be surprised that all of these phones are pretty similar in speed and performance. So we can see that the iPhone 11 has the Apple A13 chip, and then you have the A12 chip on the 10s and the 10R. So you have the same chips on these two phones. As far as speed, they all actually feel pretty identical, guys. I can't really tell the difference. So if I was just in my everyday navigation with these phones, they feel pretty much spot on, especially even compared to the A13 chip to the A12 chip. Like if I started launching applications, you can see, watch, they'll feel like really spot on with each other. So the iPhone 11, it will be like a slightly faster, but it's really not by much. So as far as speed, I actually wouldn't worry about speed on either of these devices because they're all super blazy fast, and I mean they're super fast, guys. So it really doesn't matter which one you pick if you're concerned about speed, because like I said, they all feel they all feel the same in terms of speed. So that is also really nice. And I also want to talk about gaming here, so I'll go ahead and launch PUBG. And gaming is going to be pretty much the same on all of these devices as well too. You'll see that we actually get the same settings. So we're in PUBG, and just to show you guys these settings here, what a lot of people don't know is that these older iPhones are actually extremely powerful when it comes to gaming performance. I highly recommend these phones. Anything with the A12 chip and the A13 chip, the iPhone 11, these things are going to be powerful for a pretty long time. So it's actually pretty amazing that these phones are still super fast like this. You can see HDR Extreme. I can even go up to Ultra HD if I want to. And it's the same thing on the 10R and 10S. You can see, even though this has the A12, you can see still HDR Extreme, still super buttery smooth. So just check out my videos I've done on these phones. So gaming performance, it really does not matter which phone you pick. So you guys can see why I said you could really blind pick these phones, and I think you'll be pretty happy overall with any of these phones. But like I said, the only difference that you'll notice with your gaming is that, the iPhone is basically a display. So you can see I just like the color that the 10R gives. I mean, not the 10R, but the 10S gives. Those really nice deep blacks and stuff like that. And also, it's a little bit smaller, which is basically comes down to your opinion. But all of these phones do a really good job with gaming performance. So anything you actually throw at these phones, gaming wise, it'll be able to play. PUBG, Call of Duty Mobile, whatever, they still play like flagship smartphones. So it's really incredible. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and talk about the photos and which has the best camera, which is going to be the best camera for you. So they actually all have different camera setups. Like I said, it's very subtle with these phones. So the iPhone 11 to me has the best camera setup here, because it has the more modern camera setup, because a lot of people need that ultra wide as a secondary camera. You may or may not with the 10s, right? With the 10s, this has the telephoto lens. So I'll go ahead and show you the difference here. So as you can see, like let's say I'm out and I need to have a wider shot. I need get more of the frame, like a group photo. You can see it's going to take me out. But with the 10s, it doesn't have an ultra wide. It has a 2x telephoto lens, so it zooms in. So let's say I'm at a sporting event, I need to get a little bit closer, but I don't want to, use my digital zoom. I want to get a nice crispy shot. That 2x is going to come in handy. So like I said, it really depends on you. Basically, what kind of a photo taker you are. Where the 10R problem comes in is that it actually only has one camera. So that's why I said, if you're going to spend the $255 to get the 10s, you might as well get the 10s over the 10R, because like you're lacking the extra lens, right? No ultra wide, no telephoto. So, and you get an OLED display with this one, right? So you would have to use a digital zoom if you wanted to zoom in, and there's no, ultra wide on the 10R here. As far as like the video quality, like I said, the iPhone 11 is going to do slightly better. Now they all record at the exact same settings. You can do 1080p 60 to 4K 60, and you can see on all of these devices it's essentially the same. But like I said, it really depends on the person. If you take a lot of photos, I would definitely save up, get that iPhone 11 for short here. Let's talk about the additional features here. We're going to go ahead, turn these all the way up. All these phones have stereo speakers. Let's see if we can spot a difference. And let's go ahead and hit play. Let's start with the 11. Yeah, the 10R and the 11 sound pretty much identical. The 10S sounds a little bit louder. But also one thing I'm noticing is that the 11 and the 10R have a little bit more depth with the bass. They all sound really good. It just depends on the type of style that you like. Honestly, if you equalize it, you can get them to sound, even better how you want them to sound. But they're all really strong speakers, really good bass quality, really good vibration motors on all of these phones as well too. So speaker quality is very good on all of these. They all have Face ID as well too, which works very fast. I didn't really notice a difference in speed between Face ID on these guys. And also they all have NFC with your Apple Pay. So the next most important thing we need to talk about is battery life. So battery life can be a little tricky on these refurbished phones, right? Because of the battery health. So if you go into your settings, and when you buy a refurbished phone, you don't want to get anything under 80%. So let's say my iPhone 11 here is around 87%. I think all of the battery healths are pretty good on all of these devices actually. Let's check. See where we're at, 87%. So I usually buy these from Amazon, or if you buy them on eBay, make sure you ask the guy, what's the battery health on this phone if you're gonna, buy used. 85% on my 10s. Okay, so basically the iPhone 11, it feels like it gets a little bit more battery life than the 10s and 10R. But like I said, it depends on your battery health. So, but if we look at like the ratings online of other people's battery drain tests, it would be the iPhone 11, and then the 10R actually is sort of like beats out the 10s at 100% battery health. So if all of these have 100% battery health, the iPhone 11 would have the best battery life, and then it would be like the 10R and the 10s are kind of tied with each other. So yeah, battery life is actually pretty good. You can pretty much squeeze around 6 hours of screen on time out of these phones if you're not gaming super hard. But like I said, most of you guys are going to be buying used refurbished, so you might want to clock that down to around like 5 hours and something of screen on time. So you should get pretty good screen on time regardless of whether it's a new battery or a refurbished one. If it's around 80 something, you should get pretty good battery life. Alright, so that is pretty much it. So just to sum it up, like I said, if you have the money, the iPhone 11 is the phone that I would get. And if I'm coming down to that 200 something price point, I would get the 10s. I don't see a reason to get the 10R over the 10s in my opinion if they're the same price. The 10s has the better camera setup, the telephoto lens, and the better display. The only thing that the 10R has is that it has a bigger display, which is really not that much bigger. But the 11, it does have the better cameras. It's slightly faster, and I think overall, I just think you're just gonna get more for your money. The only thing about the 11 is that the display is not as good as the 10s. So if you're really livid about getting the best display, then the 10s would be the move. So I know it can be a little bit tricky, but that's the order that I would get mine in. So thanks for watching this video, and I will catch you guys in the next one.